burnout is not in the individual, it's in our relationship with the workplace. So we own a part of this, and the workplace owns a part of this. Sometimes the ratio feels like it's 100 to the workplace and not us as the problem. What I argue with things like this is that still we'll need to build our resilience as high as possible to make decisions, to see whether this actually is doable.
Welcome to Authentic Energy, a podcast dedicated to getting to the bottom of what it means to be your true, authentic self at work. I am your host, Wendy Brand, a former corporate executive turned transformation coach. Let's take this learning journey together as I meet with guests weekly to learn how they've managed, or not managed, to find the elusive boundaries and success in their career and what it really means to find balance. Welcome back to Authentic Energy. I am your host, Wendy Brand, and today my guest is Dr. Marie-Hélène Pelletier. MH is an in-demand speaker who applies business and clinical expertise for leaders and professionals to build unshakable resilience in the workplace. She has her first book coming out in February entitled The Resilience Plan, a strategic approach to optimizing your work performance and mental health. As you know, this is an area that I am very interested and really excited about. The premise of the book is that professionals are fabulous and at risk. Because of the inherent demands, professionals often assume they are naturally resilient due to their ability to handle more than the average person. However, Dr. M.H. Pelletier challenges this assumption, highlighting that resilience is a skill that can be cultivated intentionally. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you will too. Okay, welcome back to Authentic Energy. Our guest this week, I'm so excited about. We have Dr. M.H. Pelletier, and we're going to talk about an amazing book that she has coming out and hear a little bit more about her. So welcome, M.H.
Thank you, Wendy. A pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you. Well, let's just start out by, I'd love to hear a little bit about your story, kind of what your career path has looked like and what led you to writing your book.
Yes, thanks for asking. I literally followed my nose in all my career decisions, seriously. Started out as a psychologist, just very passionate about this. Ended up working in the very north of Quebec, one province here in Canada, which was fascinating. But also at the time, 20 years ago, before we were as connected as we are now, made me aware of the difference in access to services when you're in a remote, isolated area. So then when I did my doctoral research, I did it at the time on telehealth, providing psychological treatment via video conferencing. So I had to explain this all the time. Now it's obvious. But even then, Wendy, this is so ages ago, I had to transmit information via 6 telephone lines because the internet was not fast enough at the time to do this. It was considered pre-embryonic. And so I did that. And doing this type of research at that time required having team members that had to stay with me for the whole year to not bias the research data. It also required a lot of funding because it required a lot of technology, which is now like every kid has it, but at the time it was very different. And so a lot of management on my part, which then sparked that fire. And so then decided to do a part-time MBA. And with the combination, I just ended up working in various areas related to workplace mental health, in-house, consulting, private, public, insurance carriers, all kinds of organizations, which I loved, every single one of these opportunities. And then throughout, I ended up working a lot with professionals and leaders, which then has become the focus of a lot of my work now as a professional speaker and executive coach, and still as a psychologist. And it is that work of over literally these decades with this type of population of professionals and leaders who are burning out, even if they're fabulous and extremely inherently resilient in a number of ways, but they're burning out. And so with this book, that's where the book came out, basically, because I found myself bringing elements of psychology and business in speaking to my clients, whether they are groups or individuals, And that's the idea of their book. It's bringing the reflection, the conversation, and the actions at this intersection of business and psychology.
That is amazing and so interesting. The concept of burnout is not new. And really just recently, I think it's peaked, I think COVID and people realizing as they've stepped away from being in the office, maybe just realizing the burden or the toll that that daily grind was taking on them. So what caused you to write the book?
To reach more people, to even I say this at the beginning of the book, like to save them time and pain. And because I've had so many people work with me on the concepts that are now in the book saying, I wish I knew this earlier in my career, or even 2 years ago, or when I did my burnout or whatever, right? People would say these things. And I see this, I teach also in university settings, and I'm thinking, wow, if we could inoculate people, like, give them earlier all of this visibility on this part of what a professional and leadership career looks like, then you can see it coming earlier. You can identify the signs, you can reach out to resources earlier, all these things that we would do if we knew earlier. And that's a lot of this, so that the message can be in more hands earlier in the process. So that, we can save time, save pain, and bring our brilliant selves to the work we do.
Wonderful. So what are a couple of the things in the resilience plan that you recommend?
Yes. The first part has to do with realizing that we actually need to take action, deliberate action about it. Because so much of the experience of professionals and leaders is, and that's literally the first chapter, is you're fabulous and at risk, because they are fabulous, right? Remarkable. You know this, I've seen it, it's like amazing. At the same time, if the only focus is on the technical part of what we do, the brain part of what we do, the people part of what we do, all these professional and leadership types of what we do, and not on our resilience, then the demands keep increasing, and the supply over here either at best stays the same, which it doesn't, or it goes down, creating this imbalance and that risky position. Because at some point, everyone will reach the bottom of their tank, regardless of how the tank looks like. So there was this realization is the first part, just so we're clear on it. And doing this, the other realization is that it won't take time. We just need to pay attention to it.
Yes.
So it's almost like a 5% investment changes 100% of the situation, but we need to put it in. Then it's similar to what we do in the business, where, if we're going to launch a new product or a new service within our organization or within our own offerings, if we're a solopreneur, we're going to use the tools we know from business to help make sure we don't have blind spots. That's often coming in a form of a business plan, right? Or some kind of structure some people really love that structure, some people don't. But when you don't, it's because you're informally aware of what's happening in this market. Where is the demand for this? Who else is offering these services? What values are going on in the society in this moment in time, or in this country, if your offering is in a specific location? So you're basically looking at things like your core values as either the company offering or the individual. You're looking at the overall context that's here. And then as you're looking at your original idea of what you're going to offer, you're going to tailor it based on all these aspects of the situation, the context, your values, what forces are impacting this overall situation. And so the idea in the book is to do the same for your own resilience. And how, when you consider the context, it changes everything. I'll give you an example. A lot of people will know, especially like you said, we've heard a lot about burnout in the past few years. A lot of people will know that, yes, if we exercise half an hour, 5 times a week, it is going to improve our psychological health and physical health. That's true. It's established by research. It's there. What I often hear from my clients and audiences I speak to is they know this. And if I ask them what their plan is, they'll say, that's my plan to do this. And then I say, okay, past week, how does it look like? How many times did you go? Oh, well, but last week was very busy. It couldn't do any of these things. I did go for a massage last month, but that's it. Okay, what that means is that your plan is not a plan, number one. It's just an action that we hear like a recipe over here. It's not connected to your values. It's not connected to your context, to the forces impacting your overall situation right now. And so if your life is such that this is actually not realistic, but we know that exercise would help, then how do we do this? Well, maybe one way is to scale it to a very realistic place. Maybe all you can do this week, given how busy things are, is to go stand outside for 2 minutes and breathe deeply once a day, Monday to Friday. But now you've scaled this. It's not going to be enough. You'll need to scale it back up over time. But it's not zero. You've scaled it. And now not only you've entered the habit in your life, you've honored this value, the thing you want to do. And what it does is it increases your sense of self-efficacy, that belief that you can influence things, which then will help moving forward.
Yes, I have seen both of those in action myself. And because I think what you're saying, the first step really is about awareness. Is that right? Acknowledging that there is an issue. And I think that probably comes at different times for different people. For me, I had been working in a job that was not aligned with my values for several years. And finally, my body started giving me warning signs that was like, okay, you need to take your foot off the gas. Something is there's a disconnection here. And one of the things that my doctor said, I was doing a workout at the time. And like you said, I wasn't working out when I'm going to do all this stuff. And that wasn't really happening. But what I was doing, I was putting that pressure on myself. I've got to do this 4 days a week. I've got to do the weights. I've got to do the yoga. And she was like, no, stop. Like, just what's one little thing? Exactly what you're saying, right? Could you just go for a walk tonight? Like, just try to get out of the house and walk outside, And it was because I took the pressure off of myself to do all the things that I thought were going to help, that it helped me, right? Just to say, I don't have to do all that stuff right away. I need to start with something simple, so that I can see the progress.
Yes.
I think is what you're saying. Yeah.
Very much so. And I love this example. Thank you for sharing it. It's number one, it's one that many people will relate to. So just for that.
Yes.
And it's very real. But it also shows us how for each of us in different situations, that's why the importance of context and paying attention to the context is so important. There are moments where the context will be such that the best next step is not to try to do all the things, but to focus on one, feel satisfied, self-efficacious in it, and then go from there. There will be context also where we'll actually be able to do all the things. In this case, what we're saying, it's not all as in, a million things, but and attention to cardio, strength training, and meditative type activity, let's say. So we'll be doing these things. And we'll be in a context where the level of toxicity of this team or this organization in this moment is such that even if you were doing a million things, which is not humanly possible, but let's say you were doing the million of things that all of us could do to protect, burnout is not in the individual, it's in our relationship with the workplace. So we own a part of this and the workplace owns a part of this. Sometimes the ratio feels like it's 100 to the workplace and not us as the problem. What I argue with things like this is that still we'll need to build our resilience as high as possible to make decisions, to see whether this actually is doable. Because it would be wrong to think that if we do all the things, let's say we're magically or amazingly able to do all the things, we're protected? No, because this is a system, and some of which is outside of our hands. And there will be times when, even if one did all the things here, it's not going to be healthy still.
Right.
And other decisions need to be made in that case.
Okay, so tell me more about how self-awareness plays into this.
Yes. Self-awareness will allow us from a concrete side to look at our behaviors and what we're doing or not doing, how are we feeling, and how are we thinking. And you know how in business we often say culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yes.
In my work, I say unhelpful thoughts eat your best intentions for breakfast. So even if we have all these intentions to take care of ourselves, to be the best leader we want to be, and all these things, we'll have unhelpful thoughts here. And they're very insidious because those unhelpful thoughts, sometimes for professionals and leaders, are optimistically biased. As in, we think, I am resilient already. I don't need to do anything about it. I've always been. Or I am so resilient, I don't need to think about this. It's going to be there for me when I need it. Mm. Or resilience is a feeling anyway, and I will experience it at the right time. Nothing I can do about it. And no to all this. We want to be proactive and we need to be strategic. We need to shift that belief that we don't need to do anything about it to no. There are protective factors we can put in place, and we will successfully do this if we take our context into account, which is the whole other part of this conversation. The key element on the self-awareness is to be aware that this positive bias that I'm so strong, I'm a rock, I don't need to do anything, it's actually not helping. And we're not saying you're at the other end of the spectrum. We're just saying we're human. And there may have been times earlier in our career where taking direct action was not needed. It's not because we didn't need it. It's because the overall context around us was just naturally supported. How easy it was, early career to spend 2 hours outside walking or at the gym or exercising with friends. The context was there. Now things are different. And so we need to take a deliberate, strategic plan approach.
And proactive too. I love that. So that you make a great point. There are things that we as individuals need to do, but there is some responsibility on the organization side. And so as a leader in an organization, because really that's what the organization is made up of, is the people, right? And so if I am a leader in an organization and responsible for, hundreds or thousands of employees, what can I do to help create an environment where employees can thrive and not burn out?
I know. Well, here's the magical answer. No.
You don't have it? Shoot.
No, I know, right? If it was that simple, we would be done with this part and move on. And it is complex. And the beauty with this is that it means there are many opportunities. And again, using the similar approach that I take mostly individually, although there's a chapter in my book about team resilience and organizational resilience. In all of these situations, we'll want to look at what the context is. And so if we are today a leader in a large, let's say we go large organization, same as what you said in your question, highly likely as a large organization, you have an HR partner, and the HR partner is connected with data that the organization has about how the overall organization, possibly your own team, or even parts of your own teams are doing. And so the first piece, it connects with that self-awareness individually. Well, over here, we want to listen. We want to get information first. We don't want to assume that, if I do this, it will help because I think it's a good idea. Or if that happened to me, I would love it. No. We really have to actually listen. Many times, I and others have seen this in research also, that leaders then, they see that people are reporting higher rates of exhaustion, cynicism, problems with their performance, so that they're indicators of possible burnout. And they decide, I really need to look at this aspect, and that's going to help. They do all this, the rates don't change, and only then they go back upstream a bit to learn more about what is the biggest irritant, and they learn something else. that needs to change. It was the compensation. It was the workload. It was the recognition. It was not this type of recognition. No one buys it. It would have been this other one. So if we're in a large organization, my first step would be, I mean, for all of us, we need to listen, even if you have one employee in a solopreneur situation. But if you're in a large one, highly likely you've got data, go to the data. And highly likely also, your organization has an element of a health strategy, possibly even a mental health strategy. And if they do, they've done a lot of that thinking. You're an operation leader here, right?
Right.
You've got, your plate is beyond full. So you don't have time, number one. Number two, even if you invested time, your energies will be better invested if you connect with the existing mental health strategy of your organization. So I would say in a large organization, you're listening to the data because they have it, and you're getting educated on the mental health strategy, and you contribute to it. You get on that movement and use that to support your team. If you think your team is experiencing something different, then you can go in the listening here and having conversations, learning from them. And then it could lead to things like, maybe we need to review the workload. And sometimes workload is one of the key factors, obviously. It's not the only one. Recognition is another one. Opportunities to influence is another one, for example. But workload is often one, which leaders stop breathing almost, because they're like, we need to keep doing what we're doing and more. So how am I going to do this? It's often a situation of working with the team to identify where the largest irritants are. And often leaders of experience will know what I'm talking about here, that you can change something that looks relatively small, and it may have a feeling of an impact that's way bigger. And so we have to be realistic. All of these things need to get done. But if we put the lens on the biggest irritant, on the place where everyone feels like it's a slow down, it's arduous, it's challenging, we can quite likely improve this part of the process, give it more support, change a few things, reassign, whatever, that will likely change the overall feeling of this piece, and poof, it goes away. Other things will then become demanding. We'll focus on them then. That's part of our roles.
Great. So really kind of focusing on or prioritizing the work so that all this workload all exists. It's not going away, but by prioritizing on the big pieces that are going to relieve the most pressure is a great way to approach it.
That's a great way to approach it. In case of doubt, if you're like, well, I have no data, I don't have time to talk to anybody, but I want to help. One of the key things that costs nothing, does not require anything really, is increasing recognition. So thanking people for specific things they did, but not just that. Sometimes recognition is in the form of, instead of you, the leader, going to this cross-sectional meeting, you ask if someone here in the team would like to go instead of you. It broadens their visibility, their portfolio. It, in some cases, will be seen as a sign of recognition. So there are other ways. Yes, the thank yous probably is never going to hurt, but we can be creative.
Who would you say would benefit from reading this book?
You know, I wrote it for professionals and leaders, mostly in the context of their work. And then I had advanced readers read the earlier drafts saying, oh, I'm an entrepreneur and this is absolutely for me. I've got people saying, I had my partner who is a stay-at-home parent read it. And they said they built their strategic resilience plan because they needed it. And so there is the, who did you write it for? And then how it can benefit a lot of us in the end.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and it's coming out in February. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome.
February 6th.
Awesome. If you could give us the top things that you want readers to take away from reading, what would you say they are?
I would say use what we know from strategy in business for yourself. And if you've done this before, you know it's actually not a large time investment. If you have not done it before, because I've done this with many people who had never done this before, it's never was part of their work. it also is fairly doable.
Yeah.
So I would say bring the strategy so that you give yourself the control to make your own deliberate decision. Bring the strategy. Keep in mind that then that strategy will need to adapt over time. But once you know how to do it, it's very actually simple. And what it will do is lead to concrete actions being absolutely doable because they're aligned with your own context. And that I have not met yet a professional or leader, or anyone for that matter, that does not like that sense of leading your own choices, feeling grounded and having that sense of satisfaction that you're taking the steps that you set out to take and they're having the positive impact.
That's great. Wonderful. Okay, MH, so how can our listeners get access to your book?
Yes, thanks for asking, Wendy. Website, theresilienceplan.com. And that will connect them with my website, my work, but also the book, and give them, if they wish, an opportunity to sign up for my book launch team, which is just a very flexible way to support the message. And if anyone does, you'll receive the first chapter of my book, and then you can see what you think.
Wonderful. I am so excited to get my hands on it. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. All the best.
My pleasure. All the best to you as well, Wendy.
Thank you. What a great conversation. Okay, here are my takeaways. Number 1, you are fabulous and at risk. Regardless of your tank, everyone will reach the bottom of their tank at some point. We need to take deliberate action to create a resilience plan. As you move through your career, the demands will keep increasing, but the supply stays the same at best or goes down, creating imbalance. Number 2, components of your resilience plan include your core values, context of your current situation, and forces impacting the situation. Number 3, creating a habit of self-care contributes positively to your resilience plan. This looks different for every individual based on their context. Number 4, burnout is not the individual. It is the relationship with the workplace. Number 5, we need to shift the belief that we don't need to do anything about our resilience and be aware of our positive bias that I am so strong and I don't need to do anything. There may have been another time in our career that we didn't need it, but now things may be different and we need to be proactive and create a plan of resilience. Number 6, self-awareness will allow us to look at our behaviors, how we are feeling, and how we are thinking. Unhelpful thoughts eat your best intentions for breakfast. Number 7, listening is the first step to understanding what your team or organization needs in order to create an environment that does not contribute to burnout. Number 8, prioritizing work with the team can help with workload, which is one of the contributing factors of burnout. Number 9, recognition is another tool to help with burnout in your organization. Number 10, create a strategy of resilience, keeping in mind that it will need to adapt over time. This will lead to concrete actions that can benefit you and help prevent burnout. Visit MH's website to sign up for the book launch team and receive the first chapter of the book digitally. I will put all of MH's information in the show notes, but her web address is Dr. Marie, DRMARIE Helene, HELENE.com. And you can pre-order the book at theresilienceplan.com. Thank you guys so much for listening. It has been such a pleasure and such a treat to have another guest bring forward such insightful and helpful information. I hope you find it useful. Have a great week.